What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the belief that you don't already have it? For years, people have been taught to chase their dreams, pursue success, and wait patiently for their desires to appear. But what if reality doesn't respond to what you want? What if it responds to what you believe is already true? Take a moment and think about that. What if the abundance you seek, the relationship you desire, the opportunities you long for, and the future you dream about are not things you need to attract, but states you need to assume? The world you experience today is a reflection of yesterday's assumptions. Every circumstance, every condition, and every result began as a belief accepted within. Change the belief, and eventually the reflection must change. Today, you are about to discover a principle so simple that many overlook it, yet so powerful that it can transform every area of your life. The moment you stop waiting for reality to give you permission to believe, and start believing before reality confirms it, everything begins to shift. So listen carefully, because this message is not about hoping, it is not about wishing, it is about becoming. Assume it is already yours, and then watch reality catch up. Most people spend their lives believing that the world around them determines who they are. They look at their bank account and decide whether they are wealthy or poor. They look at their relationships and decide whether they are loved or unwanted. They look at their circumstances and conclude that life is either working for them or against them. But this way of thinking places all power outside of oneself. It assumes that conditions create identity. Yet the deeper truth is exactly the opposite. Identity creates conditions. The world is not showing you who you are. It is reflecting back who you believe you are. Every experience, every opportunity, every challenge, and every success is filtered through the concept you hold of yourself. If you see yourself as limited, life will appear filled with limitations. If you see yourself as capable, valuable, and blessed, life begins presenting evidence that matches that belief. Think about how often people unconsciously repeat the same story about themselves. Some say, "I never get lucky." Others insist, "Things never work out for me." Some quietly believe they are always overlooked, while others feel they must struggle for every good thing they receive. These assumptions may seem harmless, but they become the lens through which reality is interpreted. The mind continuously seeks evidence to support what it already believes. As a result, people often recreate the same experiences again and again without realizing they are participating in the process. They assume a certain identity, and then life mirrors it back, not because the world is against them, but because consciousness naturally expresses itself in visible form. If a person desires a different life, the first thing that must change is not the environment but the self-concept. Many people attempt to change external conditions while continuing to think of themselves in the same old way. They want greater abundance while secretly identifying with lack. They want success while feeling unworthy of achievement. They want loving relationships while carrying assumptions of rejection. The outer goal and the inner identity remain in conflict. When this happens, progress feels difficult because the individual is trying to move forward while mentally remaining in the same place. Lasting change begins when the inner image changes. When you start seeing yourself differently, the world gradually begins responding to that new version of you. Imagine a person who has always believed they are unsuccessful. Every setback strengthens that assumption. Every obstacle appears to confirm it. Yet the moment that individual adopts a new concept of self, something remarkable begins to happen. Instead of identifying as someone who fails, they begin seeing themselves as someone capable of achievement. Their decisions change, their expectations change, their reactions change. They notice opportunities they previously ignored. They speak with greater confidence. They persist where they once would have quit. Over time, the outer world begins reflecting this internal transformation. What appears to others as luck is often the natural consequence of a changed self-concept. The most powerful realization you can have is that your identity is not fixed. It is not permanently attached to your past experiences, your current circumstances, or the opinions of other people. The version of yourself you experience today is largely the result of assumptions accepted over time. If assumptions created your present experience, new assumptions can create a different future. You are not required to remain loyal to old beliefs that no longer serve you. You can choose a new story. You can choose a new identity. You can decide that you are worthy, capable, successful, loved, prosperous, and fulfilled. The moment you begin accepting these qualities as part of who you are, a new pattern begins forming within consciousness. This does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It means refusing to let challenges define you. Circumstances are temporary, but identity is creative. What you consistently believe about yourself eventually expresses itself through your actions, your expectations, and ultimately your experiences. Therefore, instead of asking how to change the world, ask how to change the image you hold of yourself. Instead of waiting for conditions to improve before feeling confident, successful, or fulfilled, assume those qualities now. Become inwardly what you desire to experience outwardly. The world is constantly reflecting consciousness. When you change the person you believe yourself to be, the reflection must eventually change as well. The outer world has no choice but to mirror the inner conviction you persistently maintain. Change the concept of yourself, and you change the world that responds to you. One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about achieving their desires is the belief that fulfillment exists somewhere in the future. They imagine success as a distant destination, happiness as something that will arrive one day, and abundance as a reward waiting at the end of a long journey. Because of this, they spend their lives moving toward what they want, while constantly feeling separated from it. They think about their dreams, talk about their dreams, and hope for their dreams, yet deep within they continue to identify as someone who does not have them. This feeling of not having keeps the desire perpetually out of reach. The secret is not to live toward the end. The secret is to live from the end. Instead of seeing your desire as something that will happen someday, begin experiencing it inwardly as though it has already happened. Consider what happens when you order something online. Once the order is confirmed, you may not physically possess the item yet, but mentally you already consider it yours. You do not spend every moment wondering if it belongs to you. You do not repeatedly question whether it will arrive. There is a quiet certainty within you because ownership has already been accepted in your mind. In much the same way, living from the end means accepting the fulfillment of your desire before physical evidence appears. It means reaching the point where the desired outcome feels natural and familiar within your consciousness. The physical world may still be catching up, but inwardly the matter is settled. Most people unknowingly remain trapped in a state of wanting. They constantly affirm what they desire, yet they continue to feel the absence of it. They focus on the gap between where they are and where they wish to be. Every time they notice that gap, they reinforce the experience of separation. They are mentally saying, "I want this because I do not have it." As long as that remains the dominant feeling, they continue reproducing more experiences that reflect wanting rather than having. Living from the end requires a completely different approach. It asks you to mentally step into the reality where your wish has already been fulfilled. Instead of longing for success, think from the perspective of someone who is already successful. Instead of hoping to be loved, think from the perspective of someone who is already deeply loved. Instead of striving for abundance, think from the perspective of someone who already enjoys abundance. This shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. When you live from the end, your thoughts begin reflecting fulfillment rather than desire. Your reactions become different. Your emotional state changes. You stop chasing because inwardly you no longer feel separate from what you seek. The anxiety of waiting starts dissolving because the future you were hoping for has become a present reality within your imagination. You are no longer asking, "When will it happen?" Instead, you are experiencing the feeling that it has already happened. This inner certainty creates a powerful transformation in consciousness. One of the most effective ways to practice living from the end is through imagination. Take a few moments each day and create a short scene that would naturally occur if your desire were already fulfilled. Do not imagine the process of getting it. Imagine the result. Hear a friend congratulating you. Feel the relief of achieving your goal. Experience the satisfaction of already being the person you wish to become. Enter that scene so vividly that it feels real. Allow yourself to experience it as a present fact rather than a future possibility. The purpose is not to force reality to change, but to change your state of consciousness. At first, the outer world may appear unchanged. Circumstances may still resemble the old reality. This is where many people become discouraged. They return to waiting, worrying, and doubting. But living from the end requires faithfulness to the inner experience, regardless of appearances. The physical world is often the last thing to change because it reflects previous assumptions. Your task is not to monitor reality for signs of progress. Your task is to remain loyal to the fulfilled state. Continue thinking from the end. Continue feeling from the end. Continue identifying with the version of yourself who already possesses the desired outcome. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. The state that once felt imagined starts feeling natural. The identity you consciously chose becomes familiar. The desire no longer feels distant because you have psychologically united with it. And when that union occurs, reality begins reorganizing itself in ways that seem almost effortless. Opportunities appear, circumstances shift, unexpected pathways open. What once felt impossible begins unfolding naturally. Not because you forced the world to change, but because you changed the state from which you were living. The moment you stop living toward your dream and start living from it, you activate a new relationship with reality. You cease being a seeker and become the person who has already found, and that is when the world begins to catch up with the assumption you have accepted as true. Many people understand the importance of positive thinking, Yet they often overlook something far more powerful: feeling. Thoughts may come and go throughout the day, but feelings have a deeper influence on the direction of your life. A thought repeated without emotion often remains weak and ineffective. However, a thought that is accepted with conviction and supported by feeling impresses itself upon consciousness in a profound way. This is why two people can repeat the same words and experience completely different results. One merely says the words while the other feels their reality. The difference is not in the statement itself, but in the emotional acceptance behind it. Feeling is what transforms imagination from a pleasant mental exercise into a creative force capable of influencing experience. Think about the memories that have remained vivid throughout your life. They are not remembered simply because they happened. They are remembered because they carried emotional significance. Joy, excitement, gratitude, love, fear, and disappointment all leave lasting impressions because feeling gives them depth and reality. In the same way, when you imagine a desired outcome and genuinely feel its fulfillment, you are giving that imaginal act a sense of reality. You are moving it beyond wishful thinking and into the realm of belief. The mind responds far more strongly to what feels real than to what is merely repeated mechanically. Therefore, if you wish to experience transformation, your goal is not simply to think about your desire, but to feel as though it is already a fact. Many individuals make the mistake of treating imagination as something separate from reality. They imagine for a few moments and then immediately return to thoughts of doubt, fear, and limitation. They create a beautiful scene in their minds, but continue feeling like the same person they were before. As a result, there is little change because the dominant feeling remains unchanged. The purpose of imagination is not to entertain possibilities, but to experience fulfillment. When you imagine, allow yourself to enter the scene completely. Feel the relief of having received what you desired. Feel the gratitude that would naturally arise. Feel the confidence, peace, and satisfaction that would exist if your wish had already been realized. Those feelings are not merely reactions to reality, they are the very forces that help shape it. Consider a person who desires financial abundance. If they continually think about money while feeling worried, anxious, or desperate, they remain emotionally connected to lack. Their thoughts may speak of wealth, but their feelings confirm scarcity. The deeper impression being made upon consciousness is one of limitation. On the other hand, if that same person imagines financial freedom and allows themselves to genuinely feel secure, grateful, and abundant, they begin shifting into a different state. Their emotional experience changes before their circumstances do. This inner shift is what eventually influences outer conditions. The feeling becomes the seed from which new experiences grow. One of the most effective times to cultivate these feelings is when the mind is calm and relaxed. In quiet moments, especially before sleep or upon waking, imagination becomes more vivid and receptive. During these periods, create a simple scene that implies your desire has already been fulfilled. Do not make it complicated. Simplicity often carries greater power. Focus on the feeling the scene produces rather than on unnecessary details. If your desire is already accomplished, what would you feel? Relief, gratitude, confidence, joy? Allow that emotion to fill your awareness. Stay with it until it begins to feel natural and real. The goal is not to convince the world. The goal is to convince yourself. At first, This practice may feel unfamiliar because many people have spent years feeling emotions connected to limitation and uncertainty. Yet feelings can be trained just as habits can be changed. The more often you return to the feeling of fulfillment, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you stop visiting that state occasionally and begin living from it consistently. It becomes your new emotional home. When that happens, your reactions to life begin changing. You carry yourself differently. You expect better outcomes. You become less disturbed by temporary setbacks because your inner conviction remains intact. The bridge between imagination and reality is not effort, struggle, or constant analysis. It is feeling. Feeling is what gives life to your assumptions. Feeling is what persuades consciousness to accept a new reality. When you repeatedly experience the emotional state of your wish fulfilled, you are building a bridge from the unseen to the seen, from possibility to experience, from imagination to manifestation. The outer world may not change instantly, but every genuine feeling of fulfillment moves you further into alignment with the reality you desire. Persist in that feeling, return to it often, nurture it until it becomes natural, then watch as the world gradually reflects the inner state you have accepted as true. One of the most important lessons on the journey of conscious creation is learning not to be controlled by appearances. Most people base their beliefs on what they can see, hear, and touch. They look at their current circumstances and allow those circumstances to determine how they feel. If conditions appear favorable, they feel confident. If conditions appear difficult, they begin to doubt. In this way, their faith rises and falls according to external events. Yet true transformation begins when you understand that appearances are not the cause of your reality. They are the result of previous states of consciousness. What you see today is often the reflection of thoughts, assumptions, and beliefs that were accepted in the past. Therefore, if you have chosen a new assumption, you must not abandon it simply because the outer world has not yet adjusted to match it. Imagine planting a seed in fertile soil. The moment the seed is planted, its growth begins, even though nothing may be visible on the surface. If someone were to dig up the seed every day to check whether it was growing, they would interfere with the very process they hoped to encourage. Yet many people do exactly this with their desires. They make a new assumption, imagine their wish fulfilled, and feel inspired for a short time. Then they immediately begin searching for evidence. They constantly check their circumstances, wondering whether anything has changed. When they fail to see immediate results, they become discouraged and return to old patterns of thinking. In doing so, they uproot the seed they had planted within consciousness. The key is to trust the unseen process and allow it to unfold naturally. The outer world often lags behind the inner world. This delay causes many people to lose confidence. They expect instant confirmation and become frustrated when circumstances continue to reflect the past. But if today's conditions are the result of yesterday's assumptions, then patience and persistence are essential. The appearance of old conditions does not mean your new assumption is ineffective. It simply means the old state is completing its expression. Rather than reacting to what is visible, remain loyal to what you have chosen to believe. Understand that every great change first occurs within before it becomes visible without. When challenges arise, they often serve as tests of your commitment to the new state. For example, if you have assumed abundance but encounter an unexpected financial difficulty, the temptation is to return to fear, and scarcity. If you have assumed love and harmony but experience conflict, the temptation is to accept the conflict as the final truth. Yet these moments provide an opportunity to demonstrate faith in your assumption. Will you allow temporary appearances to define your reality, or will you remain faithful to the vision you have accepted within? The answer to that question determines whether you remain in the old state or continue moving into the new one. Remaining faithful to your assumption does not mean denying reality or pretending circumstances do not exist. It means refusing to give those circumstances the power to define your future. A temporary condition is not a permanent destiny. What matters is the state you continue to occupy in consciousness. If you repeatedly return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, regardless of appearances, you strengthen that state. Over time, it becomes more real to you than the evidence presented by the senses. This inner conviction creates stability. You stop being tossed back and forth by every event, and instead develop a quiet confidence that your assumption is taking root. Persistence is often misunderstood. Many people think persistence means constant effort, struggle, or forcing positive thoughts throughout the day. True persistence is much simpler. It is the willingness to return again and again to the chosen state whenever doubt appears. It is gently refusing to identify with fear, limitation, or lack. It is maintaining loyalty to your vision even when the outer world seems silent. Persistence is not exhausting. It is a calm commitment to what you know inwardly to be true. As you continue practicing this discipline, something remarkable begins to happen. The appearances that once disturbed you lose their power. You stop reacting emotionally to every setback because you understand that circumstances are temporary reflections. Your confidence no longer depends on external proof. Instead, it comes from the certainty of the assumption you have accepted within. And because you remain faithful to that assumption, reality gradually begins to shift. New opportunities emerge. Unexpected events occur. Conditions start aligning with the state you have consistently occupied. Remember this principle whenever doubt arises. Appearances are not final. They are echoes of past beliefs. Do not allow an echo to convince you that your future is fixed. Stay loyal to your assumption. Hold firmly to the feeling of fulfillment. Trust the process even when you cannot yet see the results. The world may take time to catch up, but it must eventually reflect the state you persistently maintain. Remain faithful, and what was once invisible within you will become visible all around you. There comes a point in every journey of transformation when something remarkable happens. The desire that once felt distant no longer feels far away. The goal that once seemed impossible begins to feel natural. The future you once dreamed about starts feeling like your present identity. This is the moment when the inner shift has truly taken place. Many people focus entirely on changing external circumstances, believing that a new reality will create a new version of themselves. Yet the deeper truth is that the new version of yourself must come first. Reality does not create your identity. Your identity influences the reality you experience. When you become the person who already possesses the qualities, confidence, abundance, peace, or success you desire, the outer world begins the process of reflecting that change. The transformation always starts within, and once it is established, reality begins to catch up. Most people spend years trying to force outcomes. They chase opportunities, seek constant reassurance, and search endlessly for signs that their desires are on the way. This approach often creates frustration because it keeps attention fixed on what is missing. The individual remains emotionally attached to the absence of the desired result. However, when a person truly adopts a new identity, the need for constant confirmation begins to disappear. They are no longer trying to become successful. They see themselves as successful. They are no longer trying to become confident. They identify as confident. They are no longer waiting to feel worthy. They know their worth. This shift creates a powerful sense of inner stability. Instead of chasing the future, they begin living from the assumption that it has already arrived. One of the clearest signs that you have entered a new state is the feeling of naturalness. At first, a new assumption may feel unfamiliar because it conflicts with old habits of thinking. If you have spent years identifying with limitation, abundance may initially feel unnatural. If you have spent years doubting yourself, confidence may seem uncomfortable. But with persistence, the new state becomes familiar. The thoughts, feelings, and attitudes associated with your desired reality begin to feel normal. You stop forcing yourself to believe because belief has become natural. The identity you once practiced now feels like who you truly are. This naturalness is a powerful indication that the inner transformation is complete. When this shift occurs, your behavior changes without effort. You make decisions differently because you are operating from a different self-concept. You respond to challenges with greater confidence. You notice opportunities that previously escaped your attention. Your expectations improve. The energy you bring into conversations, relationships, and daily activities begins to reflect the new state you occupy. Often people around you notice the change before you do. They sense a different level of certainty, calmness, and conviction. What appears to others as a sudden transformation is actually the result of a gradual inner process that has reached maturity. It is important to understand that reality often rearranges itself in unexpected ways. Many people become attached to a specific path and assume their desire must arrive through a particular channel. Yet life frequently delivers outcomes through routes that could never have been predicted. New relationships form, unexpected opportunities appear, coincidences occur, chance meetings lead to important developments. Circumstances align in ways that seem almost unbelievable. From the outside, these events may look random. But from the perspective of consciousness, they are part of the natural unfolding of the state you have accepted within. Once the new identity becomes dominant, reality organizes itself around that identity. This is why patience becomes easier when you understand the process. You are no longer anxiously waiting for something to happen. You are allowing the outer world time to reflect what has already been established inwardly. Just as a seed requires time to grow after being planted, every assumption requires time to express itself fully. Your responsibility is not to control the timing or the method. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the person you have chosen to be. Continue thinking from that identity. Continue feeling from that identity. Continue living from that identity until it becomes second nature. The most powerful realization is that you do not attract what you want as much as you express what you are conscious of being. The world responds to your dominant state. Therefore, if you desire a different experience, become a different version of yourself in consciousness first. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Accept the identity that naturally belongs to that fulfilled desire. Walk through life with the quiet confidence that it is already yours. Then release the need to force, chase, or struggle. When the inner change is complete, Reality has no choice but to respond. The opportunities, relationships, circumstances, and experiences that match your new state begin appearing in your world. What once felt impossible becomes ordinary. What once seemed distant becomes present. The outer world finally catches up to the new you. And when it does, you will realize that the true miracle was never the change in circumstances. It was the change in consciousness that made those circumstances inevitable. As we come to the end of this message, remember one simple truth. Reality is always responding to the person you believe yourself to be. You do not need to force the future. You do not need to struggle to make things happen. Your task is far simpler and far more powerful. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Accept inwardly what you desire outwardly. Walk through life as the version of yourself who already possesses the good you seek. The moment you stop identifying with lack, lack begins to lose its hold on your experience. The moment you stop waiting and start being, life starts rearranging itself in remarkable ways. Do not be discouraged by appearances. Do not measure your progress by what you see today. Continue to occupy the state of fulfillment. Continue to think from your desire rather than of your desire. Continue to feel the reality of your dream until it becomes natural. One day, what once existed only in imagination will stand before you as a fact, not because you forced it into existence, but because you remained faithful to the assumption that it was already yours. The future belongs to the person who dares to believe before there is evidence, who remains faithful before there is proof, and who lives from the end before the journey appears complete. Assume it is already yours, persist in that assumption, then watch reality catch up. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this message inspired you, take a moment today to practice what you've learned. Close your eyes, imagine your desired outcome as already accomplished, and allow yourself to feel the joy, gratitude, and certainty of its fulfillment. Remember, your imagination is not escaping reality. It is helping create it. If you enjoyed this message, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful teachings and life-changing insights to people around the world. Until next time, continue believing, continue assuming the best, and continue living from the reality you choose within. Thank you for watching, and may your assumptions lead you to a life beyond your greatest expectations.